couple of armchair GMs who have yet to be wrong with any of their Timberwolves takes. Right. It's Flagrant Howls with Phil Mackey and Kyle Theige.
He is alive. He's back from Vegas this morning.
I gotta stop doing this.
He sounds like he's back from Vegas this morning too.
Yeah, you can hear it. I was talking to my dad this morning. He's like, "You sound terrible. Luckily, you're not recording today, right?" And I was like, "Nope. Phil's I'm on in an hour." So Vegas never disappoints. I was there for a University of North Dakota hockey game. They played the Arizona State Sun Devils at T-Mobile. So it was a fun environment. It was like 99% UND fans. But then I got to watch football yesterday. I tweeted this out, but I didn't see anyone I knew, thank God, but I was so embarrassing. I was starting Skull Chance. I was 16 mimosas deep. We had a table in the sports book. And also, I always say this about Timberwolves fans because we've been through so much, but Vikings fans were littered all over the sports book. It was incredible. Just an awesome fan base. There tons of purple. And the game was, as you talked about, multiple times throughout the day, but it was obviously kind of up and down. But when they started to pull away, just loud Skull Chants all over the place. It was like a dream come true. No better way to end the month.
Yeah, they have a sneaky, huge fan base.
That's what we were saying, yeah.
The Cowboys are obviously America's team, branding going back 50 years, even though they haven't done anything meaningful in like 3 decades. I think the Steelers, for some reason, travel well, but Vikings fans represent, man. Like, even just so like cool. Purple Daily the last few years, I'm repping the hat today. The amount of people that are just Vikings fans in Germany or in New Mexico or just random places that they don't even have any ties to Minnesota whatsoever. So
yeah, I ordered my Purple Daily sweatshirt. I saw you guys drop that. I can't wait to wear that. But yeah, just tons of purple all over the place. So it was a good day for the Vikings. Not a good day for the Timberwolves, as we'll get into, but overall a successful weekend. I hope I never go back to Vegas.
and then in a month, you're going to be like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah, I'll be back in 3 weeks.
Yeah, so. Yeah. So, okay, we'll get into least favorite things about the Timberwolves on this early week recording of Flagrant Howls, your favorite Timberwolves lifestyle podcast, by the way. We'll get into some flagrant or no, but let's just start with, in general, they have finished up the quote-unquote easy portion of their schedule, right? I mean, this was the thing that people were circling weeks in advance. Oh my gosh, look at how easy the first 7 games are for the Timberwolves on paper. Not a total train wreck, but they only finish 4-3 over those 7 games, and now the schedule starts to pick up. What are your just general thoughts on the 4-3 record after the first 7 quote-unquote easy games?
Well, a little credit to us. We talked about this, I think, at the end of September, or definitely sometime in September when we didn't have anything else to talk about and we kind of dissected the schedule. But I thought about this yesterday too, as I was like hammering, minus 400 money lines and just trying to find like easy money. There is no such thing as like easy games or easy money. And we thought that this would be an easy schedule because yes, it was a lot of Thunder, Spurs type games early on. But I think it was you that actually said, maybe that's like not the best thing to do to start the season. It might make you feel good because you're trying to figure out the clunkiness on the court. You don't have a lot of preseason time, obviously Karl and Rudy. But this is also the time when those teams are trying the hardest, right? Like the Jazz think they're going to make the finals. Like the Thunder are trying. The Spurs, I don't think they're going to be in third in the West come April, but they might be third in the West come Thanksgiving. Like a lot of these teams this is probably the best version you're going to get of them. So it does make that easy schedule a little more digestible. But in the same vein, it's like, yeah, but they just left a lot of meat on the bone. I have some stats here too, but just like they just are bad at math. They don't really do any of the things that make modern day basketball good. They don't really take a lot of threes. They don't hit a lot of threes. They don't get to the foul line. They don't hit their free throws. Just the basic easy stuff. And that's kind of concerning because it's not like they went up against a gauntlet of defenders. It was a lot of young guys for the Spurs, a lot of young guys for the Thunder. So I'm a little concerned. But again, 4-3, I mean, they started last year 4-9. If this experiment works, Phil, they're going to figure out at some point, and it doesn't matter who they play. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, again, that Utah Jazz team is beating really good teams. The Thunder beat the Clippers back-to-back games, and then that Spurs team is really good. I mean, the Lakers, who the Wolves beat on Friday, the Lakers beat the Nuggets last night. So everyone's struggling, but I'm not too worried. I would be more worried come a couple weeks from now when we have more data and more sample size. But we were wrong. We were wrong to think that this schedule was easy because you're playing teams that are actually trying. They're not going to tank in October.
Yes. Well, we and a lot of people were wrong about the Jazz, just dismissing the Jazz out of hand. We talked about that. And the Spurs, it's a well-coached team. They move the ball around. It's just a bunch of scrappy dudes. And it's been like this even when they had superstar players. They always had just a team that wouldn't take many nights off. You could argue they might have taken a night off when Cat dropped 60 on them last year. Other than that, they don't generally take a lot of nights off. So there's a lot of things to get into here about the 4-3 start. To me, and this is not meant to be a cop-out or cover-up for the things that need to be improved, but is it fair to say that the main reason why they lost last night and the main reason why they don't have a better record, maybe like a 5-2 or even a 6-1 record, is that they've been one of the worst long-distance shooting teams in the NBA so far? I mean, they had one of the worst shooting performances from three in their franchise's history last night.
And I think right now, I wrote this down, they're bottom half of the league in field goal percentage, 3 points attempted, 3-point percentage, free throws attempted, free throw percentage, and then obviously that all kind of just sums up into being bottom half in offensive rating. So they're just not being able to shoot is weird. Because, yes, they lost Malik Beasley, who was a volume 3-point shooter and really good at his job. But if you go look at Pat Bev this season, he's not lighting it up from three. He was shooting like 20% from three coming into that Lakers game. Obviously, Vando wasn't spacing the floor. So you didn't really lose guys that were flamethrowers, and yet you just can't really make anything. So that's probably the number one concerning thing right now is that this team's not going to do anything if they can't shoot threes.
But that's the thing. Like they will. I mean, you look at some of the math here. So again, this is not to just cover up for other things that are more process related that need to be fixed. There are things that don't have anything to do with shooting that definitely are still being felt out here. But do you think? Let's just play a little game of. Do you think this is the shooting percentage this player will have at the end of the year? Do you think Jalen Noel is going to shoot 26% from three at the end of the year?
No, and it's not going to be 40, but it's also going to be well above 30.
D'Angelo Russell, is he going to shoot 27% from three?
God, I hope not.
I don't think he's shooting 42%, but he ain't shooting 27%.
Again, I think as you keep going, but as you're making this point, it's just if these guys just get slightly north of 30%, some of these issues become non-issues anymore.
Karl-Anthony Towns, he's only shooting 34% from three to start the season. He's like a 40% career 3-point shooter.
And that's the one that probably will see the biggest positive regression, right? Like he's done it long enough now. He's given himself the nickname as the best shooting big. Like that should trickle up to 40%. Hopefully, as he starts to figure out his strength and get his body back.
Bryn Forbes is shooting 12% from 3-point range so far this year. He's the best 3-point shooter on the team next to Karl-Anthony Towns.
And it got so desperate last night in that historically bad shooting game that Finch was closing with Bryn Forbes. Way too much Bryn Forbes for me, but yeah, I mean that's how desperate they were.
Bryn Forbes into my veins. I need more cowbell. I need more Bryn Forbes on this team.
But
the only guy that's outperforming right now is Taurean Prince. So he's shooting 57% from three, but he's only attempting 3 per game. So it's not like if he regresses, it's not going to shipwreck. There's a lot more positive regression from the shooting side of things. Now, could we nitpick this and say, okay, are they moving the ball around and getting quality open threes at a rate that's needed? Does the ball start to stall out too often in these games? And the answer is probably yes. They need to do a better job of figuring out ball movement. But sometimes we overreact to 7-game sample sizes in basketball and think, oh my God, there's 20 different problems. Well, would there be 20 different problems if Cat was shooting 40%, if D'Lo was shooting 35%, if Jalen Noel was shooting 37% from three? They'd probably be 5-2 or 6-1, and we would say, oh, there's some things to work out. But yeah, this is pretty good.
Yeah, and I mean their losses last night obviously was kind of bad, and now you've dropped 2 of 3 to the Spurs, but that we'll go back now and say that Jazz loss wasn't really a bad loss. You could nitpick execution and things, but it's a good team. The Jazz are a good team. The Spurs are maybe not on the Jazz level, but yeah, I think my whole thing 7 games into this, and I know this is going to be repetitive, but you got to give it 20 games. I mean, I was in Vegas this weekend throwing a little money down on other games. It's like the Hornets beat the Warriors, and then the Warriors followed it up and lost to the Pistons. Like a lot of these teams are just really trying to figure it out. It's Halloween today. Like no one should be allowed to worry about their favorite team in the NBA until like Christmas. So I think there are still issues, by the way. There are things that we can get into that this team is concerning about, but I don't think shooting is one of them. I just think they just are in a really cold spell, and it'll warm up. And even like you said, if Prince comes down, but those other guys just go above 30%, it's gonna fix itself. But you can't win games if you can't hit threes. So.
Well, let's get into favorite, least favorite things about the Timberwolves here, as we this will be an early week benchmark on the show, and then you can also submit for the second episode we do during the week. You can submit comments via the Score North app or the Score North YouTube channel, and we will read your comments and react. Usually on Thursdays is the second episode we do. So let's start with your favorite thing about the Timberwolves here. I know it seems like we're starting with some glass half full here. That's how I feel, though. I just feel like, okay, I'm not going to overreact here. There's some good things, so I'll throw it to you. Give me one of your favorite things about the Timberwolves so far, even though they haven't started as hot record-wise as people thought.
I mean, in general, just beating the Lakers was fantastic. This is the last time I'll mention this, but I got to Vegas on Friday.
Were you in Vegas?
I hate you. And then I watched the Wolves in a sports book, and there were just countless Lakers fans who also simultaneously had Yankee hats on.
Of course, yeah.
It was just
Duke boxer briefs too.
Yes, right? Exactly. It was just an incredible experience to watch them go kind of ebb and flow throughout their, remaining winless in the league on Friday. I know they got their first win on Sunday against the Nuggets, but it was a great experience. And just anytime you beat the Lakers, I mean, it was so, I don't know if you picked up on it. It was so cocky for them to debut their new statement uniforms that were like the Minneapolis Lakers. In Minnesota, the team you stole, very cocky of them. So for the Wolves to keep their losing streak alive was pretty awesome. And I thought they looked relatively good. I mean, my benchmark has been, do you just look a little better than you did the last game? And I thought on Friday against the Lakers, they looked pretty good. And then they obviously torpedoed that against the Spurs. But I just like how they beat the Lakers. I also just think Jaden McDaniels was, again, just vicious in that game. And when he plays well now, this is a small sample, but a trend, when he plays well, everything else just kind of clicks. Yes. And when he doesn't play well, I mean, I didn't think he was great against the Spurs last night. It doesn't click. So there's a lot of other do's and don'ts, or if this happens, if this doesn't happen. But right now, if Jaden plays well, this team's probably going to win the game. And it's something to monitor as we get, more games under our belt.
My favorite thing about that Wolves win over the Lakers was the standing ovation that the crowd gave Pat Beverly.
Yeah.
And just how uncomfortable that makes Pat Beverly. I think he's the type of guy that just...
He'd rather been booed.
Yes,
for sure.
He doesn't like when, he kind of planted the seeds all summer. He trash talking. He didn't name anyone specific, but talking about the players being kind of soft, and Chris Finch never called him back. And, he's going to mark these games on my calendar. And I am proud of Timberwolves fans for ignoring all
100%.
of that. Pat Beverly made a lasting impact on this franchise. He was a huge reason why they went back to the playoffs. And even though he's doing his little Pat Bev stuff here through the media and whatnot, he deserved the standing ovation. So even if he kind of rejected it and kind of hates it, it was the right thing for fans to do.
It was like a double whammy because he tweeted out multiple times just appreciation for the state and the fan base, which, by the way, is like you said, not all fan bases get it. They didn't really do too much to welcome back Vando and Beasley. The team just put a thank you thing on the top, but the fans got it, and they know that Pat Bev was probably one of the 10 most important people in this franchise's history.
Yeah.
So
says
for them,
a little more about the franchise and less about
that's
Pat
a double edged.
Bev,
That's a double edged sword. But also too, I think you're right. I think he would have rather gone to Philly and just if it was a homecoming in Philly, been booed and had things thrown at him, that would have amped him up. He was really uncomfortable being like, "Hey, this is your night, Pat. Thank you for all you did."
We love you, man. We love you.
Like, that's not how Pat rolls. So good to the fans though for showing appreciation, and good on the team for putting Pat in his place.
Yeah. All right, I'll give you one here. One of my favorite things about the Timberwolves is a couple of their bizarrely successful lineup combinations.
Oh, okay.
Full disclosure, I have spent probably the last 45 minutes before we turn these mics on just staring at the lineup combination statistics on Basketball Reference.
Okay. I'm going to have to do
this. I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to quiz you, actually. What do you think the Timberwolves' best two-man lineup combination is in terms of just net points per 100 possessions? No cheating. This is among lineups among two-man combinations that have played at least 50 minutes together so far this year.
Anthony Edwards and Naz Reid?
Nope. Let me see if they're even on this. I don't think they've played enough minutes.
I've liked the Naz Reid minutes. I could be so far off, though, that maybe that number is negative, and I'm just an idiot. Is Taurean Prince in that two-man thing?
No.
Okay, no, you have to. It's either Jaden or I don't know.
Taurean Prince and Anthony Edwards is the 5th best lineup combination.
Okay.
It's Jalen Noel and Jordan McLaughlin.
Oh, surprise, surprise. Jace Frederick would love to hear that stat.
Plus 36 points, net 36 points per 100 possessions in 62 minutes on the court together.
And, okay, one side to the other. It's obviously, everything's a small sample size till we open up our Christmas presents. But we also have a long enough of a leash to know that when Jordan McLaughlin just is on the court, good things happen. And with how, I don't know, D'Lo's cold shooting, I mean, again, more guys than just D'Angelo Russell are having shooting problems, but you just got to find a way to get J-Mac on the court because he pushes the pace, he gets guys in their spots, and as you just said, like, that's an insane number. That's an insane number and an insane duo that are both like, what, your 6th and 9th guy off the bench?
Well, and so people are saying, but it's just one kind of random thing. Well, the second best two-man combination is Jordan McLaughlin and Anthony Edwards. They're a plus 28 when they're on the court together. Okay. 57 total minutes so far this season.
I mean, I bet you could just start to filter it out, and like everything that's with Jordan McLaughlin looks really, really good. And I always go back to like, you can't. I don't think you can run him 82 games as your starter. I mean, Tyus Jones is better than him, and Tyus Jones isn't an 82 game starter.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to get the trust or the production from your backcourt that you want to get, then you have to insert this guy into the lineup more and more. It's why Finch closed the game 6 with him. And it's why you're probably going to see, if he's healthy now from that little, I think a foot thing he had or whatever, then you're going to have to just keep force-feeding Jordan McLaughlin minutes because the stats obviously back it up.
So here's one more for you here. And there's so many paths we can go down, and we're dealing with small sample sizes. 7 games in, so I get it. There's only really one 5-man combination that's played enough minutes. So there's the 5-man combination that's played 112 minutes is the starting 5. So it's Anthony Edwards, it's D'Angelo Russell, Towns, Gobert, and Jaden McDaniels. They played 112 minutes together. The next 5-man combination that has played the next amount of minutes has only played 14 minutes together, and that is Ant, Naz Reid, Taurean Prince, Jalen Noel, Jordan McLaughlin, sort of the small lineup of death that we've seen a couple times. They are, in 14 minutes, they are a plus 73 net points per 100 possessions. And there's also a bunch of Anthony Edwards with smaller players that show up in the top lineup combinations.
That is like how long do we have today? That is the small sample size, but that is the trend that maybe is worth following the most, is that the numbers are starting to just show, and that's why I guessed Ant and Naz, is that when Ant is just out there with kind of a more diverse set of bench players, but not a lot of height, just, kind of more of a spread floor, he's been awesome. And that's great, except you're paying $90 million to 2 guys who are over 7 feet. So, you don't want that number to be what Phil just said come March. You need Ant to have those numbers with Karl or with Rudy, because the whole experiment, again, is about having these twin towers that you're kind of building around. So that's interesting. And it backs up what we've talked about for 2 weeks, is that Ant in this bench unit is just awesome. And they defend, they push the pace, they spread the floor, they can rebound. And if Naz is out there, he's maybe their second best rim defender. You know what I mean? So they can kind of do everything in short or maybe medium spurts.
But here's the good news on the 2 7-footers that make $90 million combined. If you just isolate that 2-man lineup combination, so just when Gobert and Towns are on the court together, and usually when they're on the court together, it's with the starting 5, so it's the same cast. So those 2 guys have been on the court for 163 minutes this season, and they are a plus 3 points net per 100 possessions. So they are when it's just those 2. Now, when it's those 2 and it's the starting 5. It's like, I want to say it's like a minus 2 points, but it's close to break even. Mm-hmm. So it's close to break even when those guys are on the court. I think that's a problem long term. I think they have to be better, like a lot better than break even, because they're going to be on the court for long chunks, unless they can play break even, and then your other lineup combinations are so great, Ant with smaller players or whatever in smaller doses, that it makes up for you playing close games. But But I would look at the first 7 games as they're trying to figure this thing out and say, when those guys are on the court together, they're actually a positive influence, net points per 100 possessions. I'll take that. Like if you would have told me before the season started, hey, after the first 7 games, those 2 guys together are actually going to be a plus influence on points. Or you can take what's behind door number 2. It'll be a slight positive. Or you can take door number 2. I would say, just give me the small win here after the first couple weeks, and I'll go from there.
So on that same topic of the target centers, I stole this from our friend Wolves Clips on Twitter, who's awesome. Rudy Gobert has made 27 assisted field goals this season. Here's the breakdown. Karl-Anthony Towns has 15 of those 27 assists.
Wow.
The next closest would be a tie between Jalen Noel and D'Angelo Russell with 4. And then there's kind of like 2 for Jaden, 1 for Ant. And I should actually mention the Ant part. That's like, goes back to your point. The target centers experiment, at least offensively, we're seeing so far, like it's kind of working. They're starting to they had no preseason together, but this actually makes sense and clicks. That's great. Not so great. Your starting backcourt has 3 assists to Rudy Gobert through 7 games.
Yeah.
That's a huge problem. I mean, again, I know some people might think we're picking on D'Lo a little much.
No, he has not been that good.
But he was supposed to be the guy that benefited the most from this, but also too, like on Ant, Ant can't have 1 assist through 7 games to Rudy Gobert with how much those guys still are playing together. That's a nightmare scenario for 3 assists through 7 games from your starting backcourt. That has to get better, and that should get better as they start to navigate. A lot of it is just pick and roll, trying to navigate guys' tendencies, but it's both alarming on the backcourt, but it's also awesome that Karl basically represents over 50% of that already. He's showing you that he can make this work alongside Rudy.
Yep. D'Lo is off to just kind of a weird start. His shooting has not clicked yet. The pick and roll game with Rudy Gobert has not fully clicked yet. And, he's always just been kind of a streaky offensive player. This is, once again, small sample size alert here, but it's something to watch. So the starting 5, like I said, I found it here. The starting 5 per 100 possessions is a net minus 2 points. So they're not what you want long term.
Mm-hmm.
But not a train wreck. It's not a train wreck, but it's not what you want long term. When you swap out D'Angelo Russell for Jordan McLaughlin, that 5-man combo has been on the court for only 8 minutes. So again, but they are a plus 30 per 100 possessions.
And I think it's just appropriate now to put a pin in this because this is going to be something that we probably will talk about for the next 5 months, or at least the next 3.5 months as we get more, as we get more data. So we stop saying small sample size, but as we start to figure out if this all works, because last week you talked about a contingency plan or an escape route. It's not going to be Karl in the short term. It's just not. Now, next offseason, Phil made really good points, but you only have so many contingency options as you lead up to like the trade deadline, which is like the next big moment. And that's possibly moving guys who aren't signed here long term. And one of those guys would be D'Angelo Russell. So not trying to trade him, but it's just you got to start to figure out if those numbers are the same numbers come Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
That's going to be a major red flag, and you're probably going to see a team that's 500 because you can't win games if that's the way that pans out.
Yeah, and it's one thing to look on paper before the season and say, boy, okay, this is how we want it to play out.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have, this is our 5-man starting lineup, and McDaniels is going to be in the starting lineup, and obviously D'Lo, and then here are the second unit, 1.0, second unit 2.0, but then once the games start racking up like they are 7 games in, 15 games in, 20 games in, and then the truth unveils itself.
Yep. And
trends start to surface. They've got all these big contracts. They've got some egos, right? Will if there is data staring them in the face at some point, whether it's the D'Lo McLaughlin thing. Again, am I saying that you should bench D'Lo for Jordan McLaughlin in the starting lineup right now? I am not saying that.
Right,
I'm just pointing out an interesting trend. But at what point will they have to put some of their preconceived thoughts from before the season and or egos and contracts aside to go with combos that actually work? And they're still tinkering. They're going to tinker for the next month or two, and then at some point they'll turn the corner, and maybe the things on paper that they thought would click are going to click. But there might come a crossroads at some point in December or January. You have to make some tough decisions.
And that's what's exciting, right? Is that small sample size last time, but these first 7 games, you got some interesting numbers, some things that you didn't see in the beginning of October or forecast. Okay, let's just stretch it out to 7 more games. Let's get to the 15 game mark, and maybe those things will start to change and go upside down. But if they just continue, 15 games is a real trend, and it's still, you can flip the script completely. The Boston Celtics did it last year. They completely went from 500 team to NBA Finals. But for the Wolves, like you said, if they get 15 games, they get 20 games, who is going to be empowered to make those decisions? I mean, Chris Finch has shown you already he just wants to play the best guys. But that was like a 5-minute sample in a playoff game, right? Like that was kind of a break glass in case of emergency. Is he willing to do that again with anyone who's underperforming in that starting lineup or in that rotation? So it'll be really interesting. It's probably the number one thing to kind of focus on, because that backcourt, I know Ant had a bunch of 30-point games, but overall, just the assist numbers, the playmaking, they're just not. I mean, they're starting 2 7-footers. You got to have a backcourt and Jaden's not, necessarily Luka Doncic of assists. Like, you just got to have more playmaking and more guys that are getting other teammates involved. And that's what Jordan McLaughlin's one of the most underrated players in the league, not just on this team. So it's concerning, but you can probably just paint it with the chemistry brush still of like, let's see 7 more games. Do these guys start to figure each other out a little more? I
think the good news through all this is that it looks like the target centers have some chemistry together. There's some positive trends, and that was the thing that people were most worried about.
Concerning. Yep.
And so far, it's kind of been, like you said, the backcourt led by D'Lo trying to build chemistry, and I do think at some point that pick and roll game is going to click, and I think his shooting's going to come around. And I'm not a big D'Angelo Russell guy. I think he's very expendable. You can find guys who shoot 42% from the field and kind of volume scorers that aren't that gifted athletically. Like, you don't need to pay $30 million for what D'Lo is giving you. But if you determine at some point, you know what, he's just not the straw that stirs this drink, it's not exactly hard to move on. I mean, it's actually a valuable expiring contract. If you had to move off of it this season, like, there's teams that would love to have that expiring contract this summer come around, right?
D'Lo's contract was a lot different in like June or July, right? Than it would become February. Yep. And as crazy as that sounds, because the contract terms don't change, it's just, you make a great point that as they pay off more and more of this last year of the deal, he becomes more of a trade asset. So again, I'm not at that level yet, but back to your point, I just think that's the most important thing to take away from all this, because contractually, yes, Anthony Edwards will sign his rookie extension next summer, as will Jaden McDaniels, and Phil and I are already trying to raise money behind the scenes for Jalen Noel. But the guys that are contractually here the longest are Karl and Rudy right now. And you're seeing, with no preseason and a very small sample, like, it is kind of working. Like, there's some advanced numbers too that maybe skew some poor defensive metrics. But overall, 7 games in, these 2 7-footers, it's kind of working. And we didn't know that in a league that has primarily kind of shifted a little smaller. So that's good news.
All right, next category is your least favorite thing about the Timberwolves so far. I'll throw one out to start. We've kind of danced around this, but it's the feast or famine nature of Anthony Edwards' game so far.
Oh, well,
so
okay.
7 games, 4 awesome performances in which he is averaging, in those 4 games, over 30 points. And then 3 games in which he was either absent offensively the whole game, or in the case of last night, he finally came around in the second half, but like, he scored no points in the first half of that game yesterday, which should pretty much never happen. I don't think Jalen Noel scored in the first half either.
And find 2 people that like Anthony Edwards more than you and I. You won't. Yep. But it's also, I think you can start to treat him with like, it's unacceptable. You just can't. Ant's been great. I mean, he's gonna have another 30-point game probably tomorrow against the Suns, and then he'll have 4 in 8 games. And I've said before, he had 4 in 72 his rookie year. But we're starting to see like the teenage kind of awkward growing pains. Like I said, he had his weird situation this offseason, and then he had that comment about back-to-backs when he's just like, I'm never going back-to-backs. And it's like, okay, but as a rookie, that's okay. But as what, essentially now the face of the franchise, or you're just on the precipice, you just don't hear other guys in that stature, top 25 guys, top 7 on Bill Simmons trade projector. Like, you can't just say, I can't show up the second night of a back-to-back. That's just not acceptable. So last night, in a game, not a must win on the road, but you are playing a less talented team, you just can't give your team 0. You can't. If Karl would have had 0 at halftime, I think people would have tried to trade him. So if Ant has, it's just, you got to have the same expectations. You got to have that same standard, because those guys are face of the franchise type guys. They might be one's older than the other, but you can't give your team 0 points in a situation like that and try to turn it on in the second half. It's kind of unacceptable.
And it wasn't like he was, he only took 4 threes last night. And of course, the day after, I ripped him for he went 1 of 8 against the Spurs, and somewhere in there I said, dude, like there's going to be nights where I don't hate your shot, and you can get as hot as anyone with your 3-point shot, but there's got to be nights where you understand halfway through the first half, okay, I don't really have my shot tonight as much. I'm not going to take 12 threes tonight. I don't need to go 1 for 8 from 3 tonight. And so find another way to go get your 25 in an efficient manner. Get to the free throw line. I'd love to see him at some point get to the line 10 times in a game.
That's the number one thing I always want from my like star player. It's always like the DeMar DeRozan effect. He's not obviously a superstar, but if I'm Ant and I'm like 6 minutes into the second quarter and I don't have a point yet, I'm just like, okay, I don't know I'm just going to get 2 free throws. Like, you're physically gifted enough. Your change of pace, your Euro in the lane, like just go get to the free throw line, see the ball go through the net a couple times and kind of reset so you don't have a goose egg at halftime. So I'm with you. That is like the one part of his game that's not there yet, right? It's just that averaging 8, 9, 10 free throws a game. Easiest points in the game, right? It changes, it slows down a team's momentum. It allows your team to reset. And that's something he has to work on. And again, the one thing I will say, after saying it was unacceptable, Anthony Edwards says, I'm going to fix it, I'll figure it out, he is shown to figure it out.
Yeah.
So hopefully he comes out blazing against Phoenix, who he's been historically really good against, and has, he'll probably have 26 at half.
He, by the way, last season, his 4 highest scoring games, his 3 highest scoring games, he had 3 40-point games last year. He went to the line 11, 12, and 14 times in those games. Those were 3 of the only 4 times he went to the line 10 times or more. He's capable of shooting between 8 and 12 free throws on a regular basis.
Yep.
So maybe
for it.
Yeah, ditch some of the pull-up threes and just ditch some of the other stuff for – and he seems with that Euro step now, he's able to kind of get wherever he wants in front of the rim. So let's just find a way, man. Find a way.
It's the easiest thing, and you just – like Kobe was obviously the best at it, but just if you're 0 for 6, 0 for 7, 0 for 8, the shot's not there, go get a couple free shots at the line. There's no one that can prevent Anthony Edwards from getting to the rim. So just get to the rim and either get a layup or get to the foul line, reset, and it's a big part of his game that needs to come through, but it'll be another way that he, at some point in his career, just averages 30, right, over an 82-game season. It's because you're just gobbling up these free throws.
Yeah. All right. Any other least favorite things from you before we get to flagrant or no?
I don't even know. I've been staring at this. I don't even know what to think about it, but it's kind of mind-blowing to me. I think I saw the Wolves just in total box score. I think they're like 3rd in rebounding, like total rebounds. But they're 29th in opponents' second chance points. So it's like they're gobbling up a lot of rebounds, but they're still giving up a ton of like offensive rebounds to the other team. And again, my brain hasn't slept since Saturday, so maybe everyone already figured out the puzzle, but it's just kind of like the Wolves have gotten better at rebounding, which was their clear Achilles heel, and they're still not like great at it.
Here's what's hilarious, all right? So the worst team in terms of allowing offensive rebounds in the league this year, the Utah Jazz. As expected,
no way.
Right?
Okay, yep.
Because, you say goodbye to Rudy Gobert, and now we give up a boatload of offensive rebounds. The second worst team in the NBA at allowing offensive rebounds, the Minnesota Timberwolves.
See, and I don't, if you just give me a couple hours
so
and
weird.
Maybe like a glass of wine, I'll figure it out. But it's just, how does that make sense? I see Rudy's numbers, right? I mean, I see how many rebounds they're getting on a nightly basis, but they're still just giving up. It's almost like actually just 7 games. It's actually like majorly concerning that you're getting all these rebounds and you're still giving up a ton of offensive rebounds. And then on the backside, like you're really not attacking the offensive glass. I don't know what they're ranked right now, but like they're not known for their offensive rebounding. So that goes back to my first point.
10th in the league, but the Jazz are
okay,
fourth. The Jazz have more offensive rebounds in the first.
It's just
7.
if you take all those stats then in an Excel spreadsheet and you just start to tweak them, like if you can just get a little higher up offensive rebounding, get a little better at preventing it, and then just increase, your 3-point attempts, just tweak these numbers, it should give you a boon in your offensive production, because this team has way too much talent to be bottom half of the league in offensive rating.
It is kind of funny, yeah. And some of this is just noise. That's
a good point.
They've basically played the same 2 teams They played 5 games against.
It has been like a
the same 2
preseason schedule because the NBA preseason now is like you basically go play this same team 3 times and one home, one away, and one on the moon or in Mexico City. Yeah. So it actually is going to be nice. I know we talked about the easy schedule, but bring on the Suns, bring on the Grizzlies, like bring on real teams. And then let's actually get real numbers and data because, like you said, it's still a lot of noise and things that we might not be able to take anything away from as we get to the 50-game mark.
Yes. All right, a couple things here before we get to flagrant or no. A shout out to our friends over at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. They've been around for over 100 years helping businesses. It's like having a great offensive line or like having a Rudy Gobert protecting your business, just roaming around in the paint. They're all about risk management, awesome. Tools, and resources. And you can find your Federated marketing rep at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. Earlier, you mentioned the Purple Daily swag. So if you're a Vikings fan, so Purple Daily is
so sick.
Is our flagship podcast on Score North. And we've got a store open right now, scorenorth.com/shop, if you're interested in some Purple Daily related swag, hoodies, T-shirts, some hats. At some point, I think the Wolves need to pick it up a little bit at some point. Maybe early 2023, we can throw some Flagrant Howls swag out there. And
also that Victory Monday sweatshirt with a K, VIK. Oh, props to whoever's designing that.
Couple glasses of red wine, and the light bulb went on. What if we swap the C for a K?
There was about 6 meetings on that. Phil was just busting and just finally.
In terms of marketing geniuses, Steve Jobs is on one level. Phil Mackey's not quite too far behind. Really.
What if we just replace the letter? No, that merch all looks great. And yeah, I think maybe the Wolves could win like 3 straight games, and then Phil and I will start coming up with ways to respell Flagrant Howls and push some merch.
Bring the It's Happening T-shirts back from like 10 years ago. So, all right, I'll throw it out here. Flagrant or no? So, are the following statements a flagrant foul, meaning like way over the top, come on now, or just a common foul? Okay, that makes sense. The Timberwolves are screwed this week with games against Phoenix and Milwaukee on national TV, TNT, and ESPN.
I think it's a common foul. I don't think they're screwed in the vein of if you lose them both, you're 4-5. Like that's okay. I want to see this team now. If they had 6 straight more games against the Hornets and the Magic, we just at some point we would say we don't have real numbers. Go play real teams now. I mean, the Suns have been kind of surprising, even though we had high expectations. They're like 5-1. They're a good team. Go play against some of these good teams because also, and we kind of dove into this last week, there's a psychological element to some of this where the Wolves just continue to not take young, bad teams serious for whatever reason. This franchise of all franchises is just like, oh, we're playing the young Spurs? Okay, as if you've done anything. So go play the big teams on the brightest of lights. That's when as bad as Ant was against the Spurs on Sunday, he brought it against the Lakers. He wanted to, guard LeBron. He wanted all that stuff. So I'm excited for them to play 2 real teams because at worst they get blown out by 20 each game and you're like, okay, now we have some significant things to talk about.
Yeah, it's a flagrant for me in that like it is ridiculous to say that.
Oh, that's right. I got to figure this out. I created this game with you and I just don't know the rules. So right. It's a flagrant.
So the statement
way
is
out of line.
The Timberwolves are screwed, and we both think that's a little over the top.
Yep. Okay.
Wouldn't go that far.
I'll figure it out one day.
I wouldn't call the flagrant on that. It's early for us too. We're ironing out the segments.
I'll start sleeping more and eating vegetables before I record with Phil. So like I have like 4 brain cells instead of 3. But no,
pregame asparagus or something.
As we end October today and get into November, the November schedule is going to be awesome because you're going to get more sample. You're going to get real teams that you're going to maybe see in April and May.
Yeah.
And you'll have a better idea of, do those Karl and Rudy 2-man things actually work against teams that give a damn? And does your backcourt actually, can they produce against teams that have real all-star caliber guards?
And, if you get checked by, let's say the Suns check you and you just get smoked by 20 points on national TV. I'm not going to say that's a good thing, but you need to feel that. Where are you at? These are good measuring stick games. Where are you at as you try? In some ways, all of the equity they built as a team through like the playoff lumps that they took last year against Memphis, ordinarily those are things that you take those lumps and then you push forward as a team and then you try again next year, and the NBA is like a series of video game levels.
Yep.
Well, not that you throw that whole thing out the window from last playoffs, but it's not the same team. Vando's gone.
Right.
Pat Bev's gone. Right. Beasley's gone. You're bringing in Gobert here, and Jalen Noel has a bigger role, and so yes, Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell definitely gained experience and should take some of those experiences and learn from them. But in terms of this unit, this symbiotic thing that the Timberwolves have now, they're kind of building from zero again. 2 weeks ago, as opposed to just, let's pick up where we left off against Memphis in the playoff series. So games against the Suns, games against games against deep level playoff teams will help tell you exactly where you're at with all of this. Right?
And two teams that have a lot of like chemistry, right? Like that have pretty much those cores have been together. So it sounds like apologies. It's not apologies. No, I don't think anyone thinks the Minnesota Timberwolves should be given excuses of any nature, but they haven't really got to see Kyle Anderson there when he has been healthy. He's been really great. Yeah. So I think he'll be back this week. I think the Suns might be without 8-2, so you're going to play against a pretty small team with you're bringing a massive front line. So finally now, 4-3 is 4-3. Could it be 6-1 and you feel better? Yeah, but you might still have all the same issues and they're going to get exposed anyways. So I'd be more concerned if it's like 4-9, 4-11, like it was last year. Then we can start having, major red flags. But for now, go play good teams and, hell, maybe you figure it out, actually, under the bright lights.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to let you talk about Vegas here again because the next one is there is no better sports watching experience than Sunday NFL in a Vegas sportsbook. Flagrant or common foul?
Common foul. In terms of that is the most normal statement in the world. It is so great. I mean, it was so – there's also think about this. Not only were a ton of football games on, really good Vikings game. Timberwolves tipped off at 4 in Vegas. You also had a World Series game. There was so much to do, and if you're a degenerate, you can go throw in hockey, horses, all those other things. There's EPL Saturday morning.
The guys who sit down in front of the horse racing screens are my favorite. It's like, man, how deep into it are you? You're just like watching a track in California and with a White Russian in hand.
I was like, you probably have at least 6.5 cigarettes in your mouth. Just an insane. I went to get coffee with my dad yesterday morning because we wanted to open up the book. Obviously, there's a London football game, so we were down there at 6:30 sharp, and just sporadically sprinkled all over the casino floor was just a slot machine with someone who was probably my parents' age, just ripping a dart, still in what they wore Saturday, beer in hand, and I'm just like, that's life goals. So no, Vegas is the number. And I was talking, I had some friends that had kids too, and it's like there's so many different ways to do Vegas now. If you haven't been recently, 5 years, it's so different it's not all degeneracy. You can go do cool stuff. There's a lot of family fun things, family fun places to stay. But if you're just, a person that wants to watch sports on a weekend and there's there's the Jake Paul fight on Saturday too. So there was a lot to watch, a lot to bet on.
So Anderson Silva was almost 50 years old, man. Time
I don't
flies.
really know
who's 47 years old.
Yeah, I don't know who's really paying to watch me fight my dad. But if you are, I guess more power to you. But yeah, I'm not really interested in those things. But it was a big event. It was highly promoted in Vegas. It was in Phoenix, but it was highly promoted in Vegas too. So yes, if you like sports and maybe especially Vikings football, it was such a cool place to be for the weekend. And it's kind of like, when you go to a bar, and you're traveling and you see a couple other people wearing purple or wearing blue and green for the Wolves. It's fun to I have no idea who you are, but we are so going to get drunk together and do skull chants for 3 hours. That's pretty much how I live my life.
You're wearing a Dante Culpepper jersey. We're going to be
best
friends for the next 90 minutes. It's going to be great.
When I saw the Culpepper guy, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to hit all my bets today. So shout out to that guy. He's from Virginia.
I'm going to say only because of a different experience. This is a flagrant foul. All due respect to Sunday NFL.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And in fairness, I've never actually been in Vegas for a Sunday NFL slate, but I was there for the last World Cup. And let me tell you, same deal. Getting up as early as possible.
Yep.
Just watching. I mean, it wasn't just the sports books. It was just random bars throughout Vegas. We're just crawling with, if you were a fan of Mexico, you were pouring into with flags and stuff. So I would say watching the World Cup, the world's game in Vegas with a bunch of drunk people that speak different languages was the peak experience I have personally had. Even though I don't really like soccer myself, but I do like experiences.
I was trying to keep it PG, but on that same level of kind of people speaking all different languages and having all different kind of appearances, haven't mentioned yet that it was Halloween weekend in Vegas. So that 6:30 a.m. Starbucks run with my dad at the sportsbook was also the same time that some fairies and pumpkins and a couple people from White Lotus, just like a lot of different costumes and characters were just kind of stumbling in, probably one shoe in hand, face paint a little drooping off to their chin, but it was the best. I mean, if you're trying to plan something with your significant other, or maybe even you're like kind of adult age kids, a Vegas weekend for football over when it's Halloween was electric. I didn't know if people that I saw in the lobby were going to clubs or coming home, but either way, it didn't matter. It was just fantastic people watching. Just absolutely the best. I'm so glad not to be there. And
I think 6 in the morning, the people roaming around at 6 in the morning, I would say like 75 to 80% of them are just still awake, right? You were in the minority for sure, getting your cup of coffee.
Yeah, and just the creativity of these costumes. I didn't have a costume on, but again, I remember there was these two fairies, and they had to have spent the same amount of time I spent watching football at the book, they spent putting their makeup on, and it was awesome. Great people watching, great overall day, and the World Cup, though, that's a good one. I never thought about just how that could be. You could have like little pockets of almost nations over the strip. Like Mexico could have just completely taken the Bellagio over, and that's like their headquarters.
Isn't the World Cup coming up in a few weeks too? Isn't it like this November?
Talk about, again, just overdosing on sports. I think you're going to have basketball, hockey, football, and then the World Cup, and then just all this other stuff. Vegas is getting ready for like an F1 race that my Uber driver said was going to be like on the strip or in the streets. I have no idea how that's going to work, but
that's happening. Can you
an
F1 driver flew off the track and into New York. So
just landed in the
Venetian in the Venetian moat. Yeah,
it is once they get that basketball team too, and I think there's rumors of maybe getting a baseball team. It's going to be a really, again, for a sports fan, it's a fantastic spot to go because you can stay expensive, you can stay cheap, and you can eat all day and drink all day and gamble all day, and it's a really great time. So the Wolves ruined my night last night by kind of capping off a really good day of betting, and then we're just going to lay an egg against the Spurs, but overall, pretty good day. I came back, so.
Well, you're alive. We're happy that you're alive. We're happy that the Timberwolves are sort of alive, but we'll find out more about their status here.
Might be dead on Thursday
against the Suns and the Bucks. And we should probably get out of here before I start boring you with even more lineup combination details as I stare at this. We'll let the sample size play out before we go back to the lineup combination stats. But all right, you go take a nap.
Will do, Dad. I need it.
We can rest easy until tomorrow night, and then we'll come back at you Thursday for another episode here. And if you haven't already, please click subscribe on the Score North YouTube channel, and on the if you could give us a 5-star rating and a positive review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, help spread the word about this Timberwolves community that we are all building together harmoniously, hand in hand. So for Kyle, I'm Phil. This is Flagrant Howls. We'll see you guys.